Rev up your engine! We're going to analyze this Lexus. It has a minor transmission glitch sometimes going from second to third gear. Now the guy bought it used for $3,500 about a year ago, 11 months ago, and he's been happy with it. It was leaking a little oil. The valve cover gaskets go bad because they put these skinny little gaskets on it. You got to change them every once in a while. But now, going from second to third gear, sometimes it slips, acts a little. He's changed the fluid, he put the Lucas additive in it, and it seemed to help it a little. But we're going to analyze the whole thing and see, because these are great cars, only everything wears out eventually. And on these, the engines basically last forever. Although, realize this has a rubber timing belt, and it's an ES330. This is about the only Lexus or Toyota V6 engine ever made that's an interference engine. So, you buy one of these, you want to change the timing belt and the water pump, because if the timing belt breaks, the pistons hit the valves, and it's goodbye car. That's the only thing you got to think about on these. That's a real maintenance thing you need to do. But in terms of actual mechanical weakness, the weakest part is the automatic transmission. Now, being a 2006, thank goodness, it still has a dipstick. So you can check the transmission, the fluid, see if it's dirty, because that's the major maintenance item to stop the major problem that some of these have. Now, it's not like it's a Chrysler or a Fiat pile of junk that falls apart. The main problem that they have as they age is the automatic transmission planetary gears wearing. Now, planetary gears are just like they sound. The main gear in their automatic transmission is a sun gear, like the sun, and the planetary gears float around it, just like planets around the sun. And this particular one sometimes has a problem shifting from second to third gear. Those planetary gears, probably third gear, is starting to wear somewhat. Now, if you changed it religiously, if you really owned one of these, it's worth your while to change the fluid, say every 40,000 miles, and the filter, because it doesn't cost that much. And it's an easy thing you can do yourself, because this is an older one. Still has a dipstick, and it's got a drain plug on the bottom. It's very easy to change up. It's preventative maintenance. Now, like I said, he's changed the filter and fluid and put in some of the Lucas additive. But here's what I advise if you do buy one of these things used, or if you get a time machine go in the past when you did buy it, you would do this. You take out 10 ounces of the old fluid and use this Lube Guard Red. It's not a scam. If you talk to any transmission mechanic, they'll tell you this stuff actually works. It's a very good additive, and it stops wear. And on these, it's the planetary gears that eventually wear. Now, as we go inside, it does have 167,885 miles on it. So it has lasted quite some time. I mean, now it's starting to act up. And like I said, from my experience, it's often those planetary gears going out. Now, once they start going out, unfortunately, the additives really aren't going to do all that much. They might help a little, but the wear is already there. Just like if you crack the tooth and put some emergency filling in there, it'll help in the short run, but if the tooth is cracked, eventually something's going to have to go. Unless you want to keep sticking glue in it, and you can't stick glue in the transmission. So, let's get my big computer out and we'll take it for a road test and analyze the shifting data. Turn the key on, turn the scan tool on, and start analyzing. We'll do intelligent diagnosis. It's going to figure out what it is. Lexus ES 2006, and we'll do diagnosis. We'll do a smart scan. Notice, it's nowhere near as complex as a modern Lexus that's going to have rows of these things. See, everything is green except that's gray, but that just means it doesn't have it equipped on the car. We're not going to get any information from trouble codes because it has no trouble codes. That in itself tells you it's got 167,000 miles. It runs great. No codes, no lights or anything. The shifting, now that's not going to trip a trouble code. That's a completely different type of thing. So we're going to have to go raw into the data here. What we're going to do is go into the data stream. And as you can see, there's 108 data. We'll select them all. We'll whip through them all to see if all the data is blue, to see if anything is a little bit off. So far, it's all blue. No misfires. But everything there is blue. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to pick some parameters for the transmission, then road test it, and have the machine record it, and then play it back. Go back to data stream. We'll unselect them all. and we'll pick the ones we want. We'll do the lockup solenoid on the transmission. We'll do reverse. We'll do the shift. We'll do the throttle position. We'll do both speed sensors. Select those. We'll do a graph. And now we're going to record it. It's recording. Now the reason I chose a few parameters is the less parameters you choose, the more accurate the reading and speed is going to be. If you choose them all, it's going to be a little time delayed and the data won't be direct. This data will be much more direct as we drive. Now it still rides like a Lexus, even though it's old. Brakes, corners, handles fine. But it's the shift from second to third that he has problems with. Let's see. Well, it was okay there, but he did say that it happens more often when it gets hot. So I'll have to drive it around a while. That's the bane of being a mechanic. You spend a lot of time just driving other people's cars around, hoping that the stupid things act up. We'll try it here going uphill. There's one, there's two. No, it still shifted pretty good there. There, now I felt it. It did have a little bit of a lag there. We'll try it again. Yeah, it felt pretty good there. Now I turned the recording off, so it'll be near the end of that recording, and I start another recording in case it does it again. And we'll start all over again, give it a little gas and see if it acts up. Well, it didn't act up at all then, but at least I've got a recording of when it did act up in the previous recording that I started. So we'll go back and we'll look at the data. But what the heck, let's try it again. There, I felt a little jiggle there too. So we'll stop the recording, and now we'll have 2 bits of info. Realize it's always better to have at least 2 bits of information when they're acting up, and not just one, because with one, who knows? It could be a coincidence, and if you have 2 that have the same data, that's really pretty much going to prove it. So I made it back alive, and we're going to go to the think file. That's where the data is. And here's the reports, okay? Here's the reports. We have this Lexus, the one that we're presently working on. We'll play it back, playing it frame at a time, and I'm looking at this data. These I'd rather look at a graph. The graph gives you a better idea. Now you can see here we're in first gear. And as I move it slowly, if you look down the bottom, okay, now it's in second gear, but it almost immediately went to third gear. It shouldn't have gone that fast. You can see, I'll play it back here. See, second, third. It was a long time in first. As you watch it, it's running now. It's in first gear. Watch. It's still in first for a long time. But then it goes to second, and almost immediately goes to third gear. Yet, you see, when it went from second to third gear, the RPMs kept going up. It should have gone down, like here, where it shifted from third to fourth gear, the RPMs went down and they go back up, and then when it shifts back down into third gear, then the RPMs start changing again. The car should not have shifted going from second to third gear with the RPM rising the whole time. This is a regular transmission. It's not CVT or anything. So when it shifts from second to third gear, the RPM should drop. You're going into a higher ratio gear. Well, they didn't drop, so that shows there is some type of internal problem between second and third gear. You can see from the graph near the end, almost every time it shifted, the RPMs went down like they're supposed to, but second gear to third gear, the RPMs kept going higher. They shouldn't do that. Now, it doesn't have any codes or anything, and really, it runs quite well, except for that one jiggle every once in a while. I had a Toyota Cressida, it was my wife's car, and it had less mileage than this. And for 3.5 years, the last 3.5 years we owned it, it did the same thing. But it still ran perfectly fine. We sold the car to somebody else at the end of the time after we'd had it for about 12, 13 years, and it was still doing the same thing, really not much better or much worse. You just live with something like that. Because basically it's such a nice car otherwise, and the gear and idle so smooth, I wouldn't have worried about that one glitch, especially since it just happened between second and third gear. how much time do you really spend between second and third gear? Yeah, it's a gear you accelerate a lot, so that's often, those planetary gears will wear out faster. But they're not broken by any stretch of the imagination. That I wouldn't advise doing a full rebuild, though it costs thousands of thousands, as long as it runs as good as this thing did. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.